So the interpretation of ABGs, or arterial blood gases, is a step-by-step process, and this is outlined in the notes and in the textbook. So we'll go through the step-by-step process. Step number 1 is to evaluate the blood pH. If it's normal, then you don't have to go any further. If it's acidic, you need to find out where that acid is coming from. And it's either coming from the respiratory system or the metabolic system. Same with alkaline. If it's alkaline, then it's either coming from the respiratory system or the metabolic system. So for the example I have here, we have a cat. The pH is 7.2. We know that normal in both the dog and the cat is 7.35 to 7.45. So this is 7.2 and it is low, and that means it is acidic. So the next step is to figure out, is it coming from the respiratory system or the metabolic system? And that is done by evaluating the PaCO2, which is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood. This is the dissolved carbon dioxide in the blood. And since we're talking about arterial blood, it is the dissolved partial pressure or carbon dioxide in the artery. So normal is 35 to 45. And this cat has a PaCO2 of 37, so that is normal. So this is not coming from the respiratory system. So I have here as a hint to think of the PaCO2 as being the acidifier gauge. So if it is high, then this means that there is a high amount of acid in the blood. And if it is low, then it is lower and unlikely to be caused by the respiratory system, and it's usually compensatory. So PaCO2 on this cat is 37. So now we'll move on to step 3, which is the next slide. So step 3 is to evaluate the HCO3 or base excess. So the HCO3 is basically bicarbonate, and that's how you should think of it, is that it is the alkalinizing agent or gauge. So it is what we think about when we think how alkaline a substance is. It can also be acidic, of course, but if you think of the PCO2 as being your acidifier and the HCO3 as being your alkaline, then it kind of makes it a little bit easier, I think. So for step 3, in our example of the cat here, we already know the pH is acidic. The PCO2, is normal. And if we look at the HCO3, it's 15, and normal for a cat is between 17 and 21. So this is acidic, and this basically means that this cat has a metabolic acidosis, because the acid is coming from the HCO3, which is part of the metabolic system. If the acid was coming from the PaCO2, then it would be coming from the respiratory system. So here I've basically copied and pasted this straight from the notes. So we'll look at this one and we'll determine where the compensatory or secondary response is coming from. So if the pH is low or acidic, the PaCO2 is high, also acidic, and the HCO3 or base excess is normal or alkaline, then the excess acid is coming from the respiratory system. This is a respiratory acidosis. If the HCO3 or base excess is high or alkaline, then we can say that the metabolic system is trying to compensate for the acidosis or trying to buffer it, and this would be the metabolic compensation. So again, an example here, I didn't put cat or dog because all of these values are above what normal is for both species, but an example would be a pH of 7.2. So 7.35 to 7.45 is normal. This is acidic. The PaCO2 is 55. Again, normal is 35 to 45. So this is high and it is also acidic. So the acid is coming from the respiratory system. So right here, you automatically can say this is a respiratory acidosis. And then we look at the HCO3, which is 25, and normal in the cat is 17 to 21, and the dog is 19 to 23, so 25 is high, and this is alkaline. So respiratory acidosis, because of the low pH, the high CO2, so high acid content, and then a high alkalinizing agent here is the metabolic compensation. So if there was no compensation, then this acidic state could be out of control for too long, and if it's not fixed by an endogenous source or by us, then this animal would be in big trouble. So there are these compensation mechanisms or compensatory fixes that happen so that the animal has a chance to fix itself. So this is an example again of a respiratory acidosis with a metabolic compensation. The reason that you can tell whether it's a compensation versus the actual response that's making the pH either high or low is, again, if you do the stepwise process. So let's use one where it is not acidic. So let's say the pH is, say 7.55. So that is a high pH, that is an alkaline pH. And let's say the PaCO2 was 55 and the HCO3 was 12. So we have a metabolic alkaline condition, so metabolic alkalosis, and with the PaCO2 being 55, that's acidic. That would be the respiratory system trying to bring some acid into this alkaline situation to buffer or combat that. So the pH is what you use to determine what system is doing what, and then you look for the compensation.